let me tell you that I am recording or trying to record this session so that in case someone has missed out on this class because of no fault of theirs, then they will be able to access it. So I hope you don't mind when I record this session. Is it okay? Do I have your consent?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely okay,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Definitely okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Thank you
sir.
very
Yes,
much.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, welcome once again to my class, students of information technology and human resource management. Uh, uh, First of all, I would like to tell you that some of you may already have attended my session on economics in terms of preparatory classes. I do not have the facility to find out how many of you have attended the preparatory class and how many have not attended the preparatory class. Uh, how many have not attended the preparatory class? But I think not everybody has for sure, because some students have joined after the preparatory classes were finished. So obviously, what we discussed in preparatory classes was what we call Mancu's 10 principles of economics, which gives you an overview of what economics is all about. But in today's official lecture on managerial economics, I would like to start with what is called the central concepts of economics. So let me begin by showing to you what I mean by central concepts of economics. So I'll be presenting my screen to you. Can you see the screen?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Thank
sir. Yes, sir.
you. Thank you. So here we go. The central problems, the central concepts of economics. So the first thing that we will try to find out is why study economics. The second is the three problems of economic organization. The third is the society's technological capabilities. So this is me. Let's get on with this presentation. Please find yourself comfortable in asking questions whenever you feel like asking questions. But when you are trying to ask questions, you write it down in the chat box and I'll try to access the chat if I can. If I cannot, then you can ask questions by unmuting yourself. So, why study economics? And the need to study economics arises from the basic facts of life. One, scarcity, and the other, efficiency. We mean by these two terms, scarcity and efficiency. So let us first define economics. Economics is the study of how societies use scarce resources to produce valuable goods and services and distribute them among different individuals. Now, those who are not aware of the concept of resource in economics, let me tell you that there are four types of resources. One is called land, then we have something called labor, then we have capital, and finally we have entrepreneur. So these are the four kinds of resources. And every society including America, UK, or any other developed country, faces the problem of scarcity of resources. And when resources are scarce, then you have to decide in what use to put these resources to. For what do we use these resources, and for what we do not use these resources? And the second thing that we have to decide through a study of economics is that once we have produced valuable goods and services, then how do we distribute them among different individuals? As we go along, we will be able to understand more about it a little later. So, as I said, scarcity and efficiency are the two key ideas. They are the two key ideas. Now, resources are scarce and society must use its resources efficiently. Why is that so? Because human beings have unlimited wants. You satisfy one desire of yours today, and then you will find that there are many more desires that you wish to fulfill. But we are normally not in a position to fulfill all our desires. Now, there is a concept of what we call economic good. Good here means product or a service. What does good mean? It means a product or a service. So, what is an economic good? An economic good is something which is scarce relative to the total amount of it that is desired. Say, for example, uh, let's say a laptop, which probably you are using right now for this class. Now, how do you use? Uh, so how is a laptop an economic good? So there are about 750 crore people in the world, and if given a choice, everybody would like to have a laptop. But can everybody have it? Is it free? It's not. It's scarce. And because it is scarce related to the demand for it. That is why we have something called economic good. A good that is scarce relative to the total demand. Suppose total demand is equal to 100,000 units and the total supply is only equal to 1,000 units. So there is a huge amount of demand which is unmet, the demand which is unmet. So when you have something like this, then what do we call it? We call it economic. Then scarcity is not that it is rare, that an economic good is rare, but it simply means that it is not freely available. It simply means that it is not freely available for the team. Say, for example, let us assume that air is unlimited in supply and pure air, breathable air is unlimited in supply. Then air or say water will not be an economic good because it is not something which is not freely available. When something is freely available, then it is not scarce. But when something is not freely available, then it is scarce. So, what does that mean? What it means is that whenever you have to pay a price to have something, then that will be called an economic good. That will be called economic. So, what is an economic good? A good for which you have to pay a price. And what is not an economic good? A good which is available freely. So, an economic good, in order to obtain an economic good, one must either produce it or offer other economic goods in exchange. For example, if you need rice and if rice is scarce, then either you have to pay money for it or you have to pay something else for it. For example, you may exchange 1 kilogram of rice for 1 kilogram of sugar. So that is what is the concept of scarcity. So remember that scarcity does not in economics mean that it is rare, but what it means is that it is not freely available. And when you say that it is not freely available, it means you have to pay a price for it. And what does efficiency mean? Efficiency simply means absence of waste, or the use of economic resources that produces the maximum level of satisfaction possible with the given inputs and technology. So remember, I just told you what is a resource. A resource is something which helps you to produce something. And there are four resources. What are they? Can anyone tell me what are those four resources?
The land,
The
labor,
land,
Land and
labor,
labor,
capital,
capital,
and entrepreneurs.
entrepreneurship.
And entrepreneur. So what is a resource? Anyone who would like to tell me what is a resource?
The things we use to produce goods or services.
A resource is something which to helps us to
Produce goods and services with the use.
produce goods and services, which helps us to produce goods and services. That is why resources are also called factors of production. They are also called factors of production. So, since our resources are limited, therefore, it is quite natural that we cannot afford to waste it, isn't it? Can we afford to waste our scarce resources? We cannot.
No, sir.
And
No.
what is efficiency? Anything? Yeah, somebody wanted to ask a question or what? Okay. Now, so what is efficiency? Efficiency is using our resources in such a way so that we are able to produce maximum possible output. Let me give you one example. Suppose there are only two resources, labor and capital, and we have 10 units of labor and 5 units of capital. And you have some technology which helps you to combine labor and capital. Now, what is the maximum amount of, let us say, rice that we can produce with 10 units of labor and 5 units of capital? Let us say we can produce up to 1,000 metric ton of rice with the help of 10 units of labor and 5 units of capital. What if we are actually producing 700 metric tons? Are we producing in the most efficient possible manner?
No.
No, because we
No,
can
sir.
produce up to 1,000 metric tons.
1000 metric.
But yeah, but we are actually producing only 700 metric tons. So we are not using our true potential. Our true potential is to produce up to 1,000 metric tons, but somehow we are not very efficient and we are only producing 700 metric tons. In such a case, we are inefficient. So when will we be efficient? We will be efficient when we are able to produce 1,000 metric tons. So that is what it actually means. Then there is a very technical term which we use in economics. I'm just trying to introduce you to some hardcore technical terms in economics. So there is something called Pareto efficiency, which is a shorthand expression for efficiency. An economy is producing efficiently when no individual's economic welfare can be improved unless someone else is made worse off, also called allocative efficiency. Allocative efficiency simply means that you are being able to do best possible thing. You are not underutilizing your potential. You are fully utilizing your potential. And in order to illustrate the concept of Pareto efficiency, let us say we have three individuals, A, B, and C. We have three individuals, A, B, and C. Suppose A's satisfaction level is 7 out of 10, B's is 6 out of 10, and C is 5 out of 10. These are some imaginary numbers. I'm just trying to explain to you the concept of Pareto efficiency. Now, suppose we rejuggle our resources, which leads to improvement in the satisfaction or utility of individual A, and B remains at 6, but C's satisfaction level falls from 5 to 4. Now, what does it mean? Have we improved efficiency? We have not. Because even though we have improved the satisfaction of A, but it has come only at the cost of satisfaction of C. We can say that the efficiency has improved only if this 4 is not 4 but 5. So if it remains at 5, it remains at 6, and A's satisfaction improves from 7 to 8, then overall efficiency has increased. So that is why we have written an economy is producing efficiently when no individual's economic welfare can be improved, like here 7 to 8, unless someone else's is made worse off. So here 5 to 4. If it goes down from 5 to 4, we cannot say that efficiency has improved. So if we cannot improve the efficiency of an individual without making any other individual worse off, then we can say that we are on the we have achieved Pareto efficiency. Have you understood the concept of Pareto efficiency?
Yes, sir.
Have you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Next. Basically, economics is divided very conveniently into two branches of economics. One is microeconomics and other is macroeconomics. So what is microeconomics? Microeconomics is behavior of individual entities such as markets, firms, and households. So let us say we wish to know why Reliance Industries has been so successful company, or why Tata Steel has survived for over 100 years. What will that be studied under? That will be studied under microeconomics. Or if we wish to know why does an individual spend money on different products and services the way he or she does, what determines the consumer's behavior of a particular household, then that is a subject matter of microeconomics. But when we are concerned with the overall performance of the economy, then what do we call it? We call it macroeconomics. So concepts like GDP, employment or unemployment in India, these concepts, or inflation in India, these concepts will be dealt with under macroeconomics. And remember that even though macroeconomics is a very, very old discipline, the modern macroeconomics, as we see it in its present form, has emerged only after 1936, when a very revolutionary book was published by John Maynard Keynes, which in short is called the General Theory. The General Theory. So this book was published by J.M. Keynes in 1936, and since then, macroeconomics has completely changed from what it used to be. And today, macroeconomics is a compulsory sort of core course in most engineering and management programs. So this is what we have so far. Next is why study economics, the logic of economics. So basically, I think I'm getting some background noise. Okay. Now it's okay. There is still some. Okay. So what is the logic of economics? What is logic, by the way? Logic simply means that you draw some conclusions on the basis of certain assumptions. And your conclusions should be based on reasoning. So logic simply means reasoning. And there is something called economic reasoning. And I'll tell you that there are three common fallacies. Fallacies means mistakes. There are three common mistakes which we have to be aware of and which we shall guard ourselves against. So, what are those three common fallacies? What is the logic of economics? So the first common fallacy is what we call the post hoc fallacy. What is this post hoc fallacy? This fallacy occurs, that is, this mistake occurs when we assume that because one event occurred before another event, the first event caused the second. So let us say there are two events, A and B. A happened first and then B happened. So what we think is that B is the consequence of A, that A has led to B. This may be true or this may not be true. Normally in economics, this may not be true. So let me try to give you one example of a post hoc fallacy. So what happens is that every, economic growth is followed by a recession. Every prosperity is followed by recession. So what is the event A? Event A is prosperity. What is event B? Event B is recession. So we will commit a mistake if we say that prosperity is the reason of recession. Recession is caused by something else. Of course, it is true that every prosperity is followed by recession, but that does not mean that prosperity should be held responsible for recession. So this is the first important fallacy that you should guard against. The second is failure to hold other things constant. You know, uh, there is something called ceteris paribus. Ceteris paribus, which is, I suppose, a Latin phrase for holding other things constant. Now, what does holding other things constant mean? Let us, for time being, think of something called demand for a mobile phone. Demand for a mobile phone. Now, think of three factors which affects demand for mobile phone. One is obviously the price of mobile phone. What do you think could be the other factors?
Competition,
Specifications.
Features
It's
specification.
specifications. It's
competition,
specifications, Michael. It's specifications. What else?
the
Brand
competition,
value.
Substitutes available.
Substitutes available in the market,
Ability to fulfill
and of course,
customers' requirement.
ability to fulfill customers' requirement, income of the
Latest
consumer. There are so
technology.
many. Yeah, technology. So, let us say
Credible.
we are.
Credible.
And
Yeah,
government
that's fine.
policy. Government
Yeah,
policy.
government policy. There are so many of
Credible.
them.
Taxation.
Very true. Very true. Now, just think of the impact of change in price on demand. What will happen to the demand for a mobile phone if price of the mobile phone goes up? Then
Demand will fall.
the demand
Demand.
is likely to fall. But this will happen only if all other factors are held constant. Like income of the consumer is held constant, whatever substitutes are available in the market, that should also be constant. All specifications should also be constant. All competition should also be constant. So then only we will be able to analyze the impact of a variable on the economic system. So what if everything other than price also changes? Then we will not be able to say what is happening to demand. For example, if income of the consumer also goes up along with price, do you think demand will fall?
No, sir.
Demand will not fall because people will say that, okay, I have more income than before, so I'm not impacted even if I have to pay a higher price for it. So unless you hold other things constant, you will not be able to analyze the impact of a change in one variable on some other variable. So let us say we have two variables, y and x. What will happen to y if x changes? We can find out that only if all other factors which affects y are also held constant. But normally we are unable to do so. That is why we sometimes say that we fail to observe the logic of economics. In order to observe the logic of economics, you should always guard against the post hoc fallacy and failure to hold other things constant. And the final one is the fallacy of composition. What is fallacy of composition? Let's define it. When you assume that what is true for the part is also true for the whole, they are committing the fallacy of composition. For example, if one farmer has a bumper crop, then what will happen to her income? Her income will go up. What is a bumper crop? Bumper crop means that there is a very high production of that crop. And if one farmer is able to produce a lot, then she will be able to sell a lot, and therefore her income will also go up. But suppose it's not only she who has a bumper crop. Every single farmer in an area observes record crop, produce record crop. What will happen to the price of the crop? Because of overproduction, prices will fall. And when price falls, what will happen to the farmer's income? Farmer's income will also fall. So, what is true for one may not be true for all. You know, sometimes we are told that you must save a part of your income. When you save a part of your income, what it means is that you do not spend it. When you do not spend it, then the demand for various kinds of goods and services gets impacted. And when demand gets impacted, what happens to production? Production also gets adversely impacted. So the growth rate of GDP is not very high as a result of large savings. This is just one sort of explanation. On the other hand, we can also say that unless you save, there will be no high rate of growth of GDP. But that is a different logic. So what I'm trying to say is the behavior of the aggregate looks very different from the behavior of individual people. What is good for one person may not be good for the society as a whole in aggregate. That is the fallacy of composition. And only a few minutes back, I was referring to macroeconomics. Macroeconomics is the study of the overall economy. So overall economy is nothing but the aggregate of everything. Aggregate of everything. So we are adding oranges and apples, rice and wheat, oil and cloth. We are aggregating uh, hair cutting services with movie exhibition services. So everything is aggregated. When we aggregate everything, then the behavior becomes totally different from what it is in case of an individual. So remember that when it comes to the logic of economics, we should always be on guard against these types of mistakes, which we call fallacy. What are they? The post hoc fallacy, which is when we assume that one event occurred before another event, therefore the first event must have been caused by the second, must have caused the second event. Second, to hold other things constant is a must, but we generally do not hold or fail to hold other things constant. And finally, what is good for an individual may not be good for the society as a whole, which is what we call the fallacy of composition. Next, we turn our attention to two more types of economics. One is called positive economics and the other is called normative economics. So, let us say somebody is trying to explain why China's economic growth rate has been highest among major economies of the world. Now, an answer of this question is not easy. You will have to analyze lots of facts, lots of variables before you could answer this question. But what you will do is you will be able to get to give some explanation as to why China's growth rate of GDP is more than the GDP growth rate of most major economies of the world, including India and Brazil and South Africa. So why is that so? This is what we call positive economics. When we just try to explain why something has happened, then that is called positive economics. And what is normative economics? Normative economics involves ethics, norms of fairness. So even though a country's GDP growth rate may have been very high, but the growth may not have been inclusive. You must have heard of this term that Growth should be inclusive. So the moment you use the term should be or ought to be, when you use the term should be or ought to be, then this becomes a question of norms, and therefore we call such economics normative economics. So you may debate as to whether a deterioration in the distribution of income as a result of high economic growth rate is uh, desirable in a society or not. Now, that is a question of norms, and that will fall under the category normative economics. Whereas positive economics does not care about what is ethical, what is unethical. So long as everything is within the law, within the legal compliance, it is okay. So, what is the difference between positive and normative economics? Positive economics simply explains an economic phenomenon, whereas normative economics tells you that what is happening in the economy should not have happened and something else should have happened. So the moment you use the term should have, moment you criticize something which is happening on some ethical ground, then we call it normative economics. There are
Sir,
other kinds of, yes,
sir, like if you remember in the year 2015 when Greece was going through a economic turmoil, so that falls within the positive economics part. Why did it happen with
look,
Greece?
why did something happen
Yes,
is a subject matter of
positive
positive
economics.
economics.
Okay, sir. Okay,
That's it.
okay.
Okay. But what should have happened
That falls under
is a
normative
subject
economics.
matter of
Normative economics.
normative economics.
Okay,
Okay.
sir. Okay, sir.
Next. So, some of you may have already been exposed to the three central problems of economic organization. Let me tell you. So, we have already known the main problem that a society faces is what we call the problem of allocation of resources. And what are the main three questions under the allocation problem? What to produce? That is, whether to produce guns or butter. How to produce? That is, whether to use capital intensive technology or labor intensive technology or some other kind of technology. And for whom to produce? Whether large part of the total production should go to the labor or landlords or capitalists or entrepreneurs. So this is the central problem of an economy, which we call the allocation problem. So how do we answer these questions? So if someone asks you as a student of economics in XISS, what should India produce? You must have read in newspapers that India have just started to acquire Rafale jet, Rafale jet, fighter jets. Now, should India have bought Rafale jet, or should India have used the same amount of money which it is spending on buying these fighter aircrafts on poverty alleviation? What should it have done? So, how will you answer this question whether to produce butter or to produce guns? Butter is a, say, a term for food, and gun or weapons. So, whether to produce guns or butter, how do you answer this question? What should India do? So, basically, such questions are answered on the basis of what we call economic systems. And there are three economic systems through which we try to answer these three questions: what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. What are the three economic systems that we are talking about? These are the three economic systems. Anyone who's asking a question? No. Market economy, command economy, and mixed economy. So what is a market economy? What is a command economy? What is mixed economy? Market economy is one in which individuals and private firms make the major decisions about production and consumption through price mechanism. So basically, market mechanism simply means that you leave every question to be answered by the market. Let the market decide. Let no one else decide. Let the market decide what to produce. So what will you produce? You will produce something for which there is demand. And what will you not produce or produce little? You will produce little for which there is little demand or no demand. So who answers this question what to produce? The market. Through what? Through price mechanism. If the market is ready to pay a high price for a product, what does it mean? It means that the market considers that product valuable. So there will be people who will be ready to produce and supply that stuff in the market. But if the price of something is very low, it means that the market is very less for that particular product, and therefore either there will be no production or there will be little production of that product. So basically, it would be the factors of demand and supply, which will determine what to produce and what not to produce. This is what we call market economy. And what is the next? Command economy. What happens in command economy? The government takes all important decisions about production and distribution. What we produced, government will decide. Who will get it? Government will decide. So, not long back, there was something called USSR, that is Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, but it is no longer uh, existing in its present form and no longer existing in this form. So it disintegrated. Now, USSR was an example of a command economy. The central government used to decide everything, what to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce. But the norm is neither a completely market economy nor a completely command economy. There is a mixture of the two, which is what we call mixed economy. All societies are mixed economies, all, including America, including Russia. All societies are mixed economies with both elements of market, that is price mechanism, demand and supply, as well as command economy, that is the government. So basically, why are we discussing these three alternative economic systems? Economic systems refer to a system which tries to answer questions regarding what to produce, how to produce, and whom to produce. And what are they? They are market economy, command economy, mixed economy. What kind of countries do we have mostly? We have mixed economy. But some countries have more command economy and less market economy, and some countries have more market economy and less command economy. For example, Cuba. Cuba is a country which is mostly command economy, but it also has elements of market economy. What about USA? USA has mostly market economy, but has also some form of command economy. But countries are most countries are most countries are mixed economy. And then we discuss what is called society's technological possibilities. You know, when we talk of production, what exactly do we talk of? Production is nothing but processing inputs, processing inputs into outputs, processing inputs into outputs. So there are two terms, inputs and outputs. I have already told you that inputs are just another name for productive resources, that is land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. And output is the outcome of labor of land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. So when you convert a piece of timber into a piece of furniture, then you have processed inputs into output, and that is what we call production. So inputs are limited in number. They are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. Output are goods produced from inputs using some technology, some kind of a system. And then we use a very important curve in economics, which is called the production possibility frontier. And very quickly, I'll show you the production possibility frontier. But let me first tell you what does a possibility frontier actually show. A production possibility frontier, which looks something like this, Let us say this is guns and this is butter. This is guns, this is butter. This is a production possibility curve. This is a production possibility curve. Now, what does this production possibility curve show? It shows the maximum quantity of goods that can be efficiently produced by an economy. Mind the word efficiently. It shows the maximum quantity of goods that can be efficiently produced by an economy given its technological knowledge and the quantity of available inputs. So I will show you how this curve is derived and how do we interpret this curve. So let me just go to the slide where I can show you the derivation of the production possibility. So look at this. So there are 6 possibilities: A, B, C, D, E, and F. Then possibility A represents 0 butter and 15,000 guns. On the other hand, the last possibility F represents 5 units of butter and 0 units of gun. And then in between, you have different possible combinations. So let us say if you want to produce 1 million pounds of butter, then you will have to reduce your production of guns from 15,000 to 14,000. Likewise, if you want to produce more butter, that is 2 million pounds of butter, then how many guns will you be able to produce? You will be able to produce only 12 guns, 12,000 guns. Now, think of the amount of gain and the amount of loss. So, what is the amount of gain? From 0 to 1, you get 1 million units of butter. At what cost? 1,000 units of guns. Then you get another 1 million units of or 1 million pounds of butter, but this time you will have to sacrifice 2,000 guns or 2,000 units of guns. And then for another 1,000 or 1 million pounds of butter, this time you will have to sacrifice 3,000 units of guns. So what it shows is that it is becoming increasingly difficult to substitute butter for guns or guns for butter. When we plot these possibilities on a graph paper, then we get these points. Point A, what does A represent? 0 and 15. B represent 1 and 14. C represents 2 and 12. Likewise, F represents 5 and 0. And when we combine these points by means of a freehand curve, smooth curve, then we get production possibility frontier. This is called production possibility frontier, which is concave, which is concave. We do not have something like this. We have inward going curve rather than outward going curve. So this is the production possibility curve, and the reason why it is so, I'll explain it a little later. So this is what is called the production possibility curve. And this production possibility curve can be seen on the top of the three curves. You can see that guns on the vertical axis and butter on the horizontal axis, and a smooth curve connects the plotted points of the numerical production possibilities. This frontier shows the schedule along which society choose to substitute guns for butter. So remember, the key word is substitution. Substitution of guns for butter or butter for guns. It assumes a given state of technology. Remember that it assumes that technology is given and constant. You're not allowing technology to either degrade or upgrade. One more thing. What about this point I? Point I. Point I simply means that you it is beyond your reach. You can at most be on the PP frontier. This is the frontier. This is the frontier. You cannot go beyond that. And if you are below the frontier, like point U, it means you are underutilizing your resources. So, from one simple production possibility frontier, you can illustrate the problem of allocation of resources. So, allocation of resources problem simply tells us whether to produce at A or to produce at B or C, D, E, or F, or anywhere between A and B, between B and C, between C and D. So say if you have a point between C and D, what will that point show? It will show some combination of guns and butter. And once it shows some combination of guns and butter, then you have to decide whether to go for that combination or not. So that is what this basically shows. Any point, as I said, inside the curve, such as U, indicates that economy has not attained productive capacity, productive efficiency. So, for example, this will happen when unemployment is very high during recessions. And then we can also show which nation will do better as compared to some other nation. Let us say in the lower part diagram, the left hand diagram, which we are calling figure 1.3, we have two figures, A and B, one for poor nation, another for high income nation. For poor nation, let us say before development, the nation is poor. Both countries are poor, A as well as B. It must devote almost all of its resources to food and enjoy free few comforts. Now, notice what is measured along the x-axis and what is measured along the y-axis. Along the x-axis is necessities like food, cloth, shelter. Along the y-axis is luxuries like car, stereo, mobile phones, and so on. So basically, both the countries are at point A. What does A represent? Most of you are having necessities and very few luxuries. Later on, what happens is input grows. That is, you have more land, more capital, more labor, more resources, more entrepreneurs. And you have also been able to develop your technology because of science and technology education in your country. Now, whenever your resources improve or whenever your technology improves, what happens to the production possibility frontier? It shifts to its right. The production possibility curve shifts to its right. And in the new production possibility frontier, what we find is that with economic growth, a nation moves from A to B. A nation moves from A to B, expanding its food consumption little compared with its increased consumption of luxuries. It can increase its consumption of both goods if it so desires. So, a country which is able to produce more is able to enjoy more in terms of consumption of luxuries. So, what does this diagram actually show? This diagram shows that when economic growth takes place, then the production possibility frontier shifts to its right, which enables you to not only consume more necessities but also consume more luxuries like cars and music systems. So this is one. Then you have another two sets of diagrams, very informative. One is the economies must choose between public goods and private goods. Public goods and private goods. What is the difference between public goods and private goods? So basically, public goods are those goods which are provided by the government. Private goods are those goods which are bought by the families or households by spending money. So, road, Sarkari hospital, they are examples of public goods. But when you buy a TV set or a laptop, then it is an example of private goods. So, a country which is poor is sometimes also called a frontier society. A poor frontier society lives from hand to mouth. So this point A illustrates it that it lives from hand to mouth because most of its consumption is in terms of private goods and very little of it is in terms of public goods like clean air, with little left over for public goods like clean air, public health. A modern urbanized economy is more prosperous and chooses to spend more of its higher income on public goods and government services like roads and education and environmental protection. Think of poor people in India. How many of them are able to go to attend higher education, even if it is provided publicly by the government? For example, Ranchi University doesn't charge any fees for, or maybe it charges very small amount of fees. Delhi University charges something around 2,000 rupees per annum to offer you graduate education. Now, if you are not attending such schools and colleges, then what it means is that your public good consumption is very less as compared to private goods. So, what society is able to consume more public goods and at the same time more private goods? Urban society. But another important question that we have to confront is whether we use resources for current consumption or whether we will save some of our current income and postpone our consumption for the future and the saving is invested for future prosperity. So just focus on the lower set diagram. A nation can produce either current consumption goods like pizzas and concerts, or investment goods like pizza ovens and concert halls. Remember, there are two kinds of goods: consumer goods and investment goods. Investment goods. Pizza is a consumer good, but the pizza oven is a investment good. So you have 100 rupees, you have to decide whether to use it for buying pizza or for investing the same amount of money in pizza oven. If you invest in pizza oven, your probability of becoming a prosperous nation will be very high. If you consume most of your income today and save very little, then your chances of economic growth are very low. That is what this lower set diagram shows. So a nation can produce either current consumption goods or investment goods. Three countries start out even. All three countries. Let us say country one is on A1, country two is on A2, country three is on A3. Then, uh, so the three countries start out even. They have same production possibility frontier shown on the left panel, but they have different investment rates. Country one does not invest for the future and therefore remains at A1. Country two invests something for the future, therefore it progresses from A1, which makes it on production possibility curve of B1 to B2. So basically, by investing, country 2 is able to attain a higher production possibility curve called B2. And the third one, if a country is investing even more, if a country is investing even more, then uh, it will go to even higher uh, production possibility curve, that is B3. So what it actually means is that country 3 sacrifices a great deal of current consumption and invests heavily, and in the following years countries that invest more heavily forge ahead. Thus thrifty country 3 has shifted PPF far out, while country 1's PPF has not moved at all. So basically, what is the lesson that we have to draw from this? That we should try and save and invest as much as we can, as much as we can. Therefore, the last part of this is, so why do we study economics? And this last thing needs your total attention, and that will make us conclude our session. It's probably a very longish kind of paragraph, very difficult to understand, but I'll try and make this uh, easy for you. So, what is behind a study of economics? Behind it is the ideas. That famous uh, advertisement uh, uh, centered around the concept of idea, the idea mobile phone uh, advertisement. Remember that? In
Yes,
which
sir.
Abhishek Bachchan used to say, "What an idea, Sergi." Remember that? Okay,
Yes,
you
sir.
may
Yes,
not
sir.
remember.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So basically, what this says is that everything in the whole world is ruled by nothing but ideas. The ideas of economists and political philosophers, both when they are right and when they are wrong, are more powerful than is commonly understood. So remember that everything in the world is ruled by the ideas. When your ideas are right, you do right. When your ideas are wrong, you play havoc, you wreak havoc. But basically, what rules the world? Ideas. Indeed, the world is ruled by little else. और किसी चीज से वर्ल्ड रूल नहीं होता. किस चीज से वर्ल्ड रूल होता है? आइडियाज से. Practical men believe themselves to be quite exempt from any intellectual influences are usually the slaves of some defunct economist. You know, you must have heard someone saying that, I don't believe in theory. I'm a practical person. I do what I see and what I experience. I do not read books. I only go by what I experience. For example, there are many rulers in the world who have not studied a lot in terms of formal education, but they have very rich experience, and they are called practical men. They claim that they are exempt from any intellectual influences. They are exempt from any intellectual influences. They have not read John Maynard Keynes, or they have not read, say, Plato or Socrates. They have not read any philosophy, but what they do is on the basis of what they have experienced in their life. Basically, they do not know that they are just following some economist whose ideas have become outdated or defunct. Mad men in authority, people who are dictators, who just try to force their own ideas on others, and who hear voices in the air. बोलते हैं ना कि हवा में सुनाई दे रहा है उसको कुछ कुछ. Madmen in authority who hear voices in the air are distilling their frenzy from some academic scribbler of a few years back. Distilling their frenzy. They're very excited. They are trying to do things in a very hurried manner. And they are trying to get their ideas from what is called some academic scribbler. Who is an academic scribbler? One who comes up with an idea without, giving a serious thought to it, whether the idea is good, workable, or not. So you must have seen that there are some countries in the world who are claiming that they have come up with a vaccine for COVID-19, and they can be called some kind of a scribbler because they have not actually focused on all the routines that are supposed to be followed in order to actually come up with a vaccine. So I am sure that the power of vested interest is vastly exaggerated compared with the gradual encroachment of ideas. So we always say that things are going wrong because everything is being done by vested interest. But Keynes said vested interests are important. What is important is ideas. So if people have wrong ideas, they will play havoc with the country. Not indeed immediately, but after a certain interval. For in the field of economic and political philosophy, there are not many who are influenced by new theories that are 25 or 30 years of age, so that the ideas which civil servants and politicians and even agitators apply to current events are not likely to be the newest. So what is being said is that the people who are in authority, who make policies, are guided by some outdated ideas. They are not going by new ideas. They are going by some outdated ideas. But ideas they are. Still, they are ruled by ideas. Maybe defunct ideas, maybe outdated ideas, but they are still being guided by ideas. Soon or late, it is ideas, not vested interests, which are dangerous for both good or evil. And that is why we study economics, because to understand how the powerful ideas of economics apply to the central issues of human societies, we have to study economics. So that is why we study economics. So this completes our discussion on central concepts of economics today. I just share with you some concepts for your review. There are three fundamental concepts, three problems of economic organization, and choice among production possibilities. Under fundamental concepts, there is scarcity and efficiency, free goods, macroeconomics, normative versus positive economics, and the three types of fallacies. then allocation problem, then the three kinds of economic systems, command economy versus market economy. You find out from your own what is less fair, and then choice among production possibilities. Input and output, production possibility curve, production efficiency, and inefficiency opportunity cost. So these are some of the concepts which you must make sure that you have understood fully in order to be convinced that you have understood uh, this particular topic. So thank you very much. I now will stop sharing the screen. I will now stop sharing the screen. Where do I get it from? Where do I get it from?
So can I
So
ask
there
you?
we are. You can ask a question, but just let me try and do one thing. Let me see whether it works or not. Just let me try and do this.
Sure. Sir.
Mhm. Just see whether it is working or not. It is not working. Like this attendance collector is not working. Hmm. Doesn't look like it is working at all. All right. So what I'll suggest is uh, that please mark yourself present in the chat box so that I'm able to take a record of attendance. Okay. So first IT roll number 1, 2, I suppose 35, I believe. So those who are present, mark yourself present in the chat box. And also, please also write down your roll number. So in the meantime, we can go ahead with the question that someone was trying to ask.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, can you just please
Yeah.
once more just tell what is the meaning of that I on the point in the graph in the PP curve? What does I mean?
Let me go back to the note.
So U means the underutilization of the resources, as you said. So what does the I mean?
This this are you able to see it?
No, sir. But I have.
Oh, acha, I'm not present. Okay. So
Yeah.
the point U is inside the production possibility frontier, which means unemployment, recession, and you are inefficient because you are not being able to utilize your resources fully. And the point I, which is beyond the production possibility frontier, means that you are simply, that point I is simply beyond a country's reach. That your production possibility frontier does not allow you to go to point I. You can reach I, but only after you have invested heavily and grown heavily.
So it's beyond the scope.
It's beyond the scope. Yes,
Okay. Thank you, sir.
it's
Thank you.
beyond the scope. Uh, I hope everybody who was present has already marked him or herself present. Any other question in the meantime?
Sir, I have one more question, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, regarding the common policy and the second point where you actually say that failure to hold other things as constant. So, like,
Huh.
do we actually fail to hold the other things as constant, which is also not practically possible. Don't you think so, sir?
Not
Like as
possible.
you,
Not
yeah.
possible. Not possible. Very true.
So, sir, the economics does say that we need to hold the other things constant in order to make a relativistic difference
Yeah.
approach. Okay, sir.
So basically, I'll tell you one thing. In order to know what is the impact of change in one variable on some other variable, you must keep all other factors constant.
Constant.
Otherwise,
Absolutely.
how do you know that something has changed because of something else? So if demand has gone down, how do you know for sure that it has gone down because of rise in prices
Rise
and
in
not
price.
because of anything else?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, sir.
Yeah. So there are mathematical uh, techniques through which you can hold other factors constant. But in the practical world, it is not possible for you or for me to hold other factors constant and then analyze the change impact of one variable on the
On
other
the other
variable.
other
It's
variable.
not possible. But
Yes.
through data and through certain techniques, mathematical techniques like partial correlation, like there are many techniques, mathematical techniques. Hopefully, we will discuss them someday, but it is possible.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Has everybody marked himself present?
Yes, sir.
Hope so.
Yes,
So thank you
sir.
very much.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So,
Thank you very much. Yes, go
uh,
ahead.
so I did a mistake. My roll number is 3, and by mistake, I wrote my graduation roll number. It's actually roll number 3
Okay,
present from SRM.
okay. So you just write down the earlier roll number which I marked myself is wrong. This is my present roll number and I'm present.
Sure, sir. Just please give me a minute. I'll write it down.
Ha,
So
I'm
good
giving you a
morning,
minute,
sir.
no problem. Hi.
Sir, can you please explain the second fallacy, failure to hold other things constant?
That's what I'm saying. Say, for example, demand for something depends on, say, price, and let us say your income. Now, if your income is held constant, then what will be the demand if price of the product goes up? Since you will have to pay more for the product, therefore you
Yes,
will
sir.
probably buy less of it, isn't it?
Yes,
But
sir.
if you fail to keep other factors constant, like income, then this relationship will not hold good. For example,
Yes, sir.
if price goes up, but simultaneously your income also goes up, then you won't mind spending more,
Yes, sir.
isn't it?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So the demand for it may not fall. So
Yes,
that is
sir.
why you would have noticed that despite the sharp increase in the price of vegetables, the demand for
Yes, sir.
vegetables has not fallen. Why? Because income of the people have also gone up
Yes,
simultaneously.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So
Thank
that
you,
is
sir.
the point.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I have a question that in academics we can assume some things to be constant to reach out to a conclusion, but in real life scenario where everything has been changes simultaneously, then how can we reach out to a conclusion?
So that's impossible. That is why economics has two kinds of equilibrium solutions. One is called partial equilibrium, wherein we forcefully hold all other factors constant and allow only one factor to change. And then we have something called general equilibrium. In general equilibrium, we allow every single factor that can have an impact on something else to change. So there are tools in economics wherein you allow every other factors to change. But remember one thing, that if y depends on x1, x2, and x3, and if you wish to know how will y be impacted because of change in x1, then you must hold x2 and x3 constant, otherwise you will not be able to know it.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you guys. Thank you very much for
Excuse me, sir.
uh, very interactive session, and thank you very much, especially for your questions. I really love when students ask questions from me, even though I may not be able to answer any one of them, but I still love it. because it keeps me on my tenterhooks all the time.
You answer so
So thank you very
beautifully.
much. Thank you. Hope to see you next. In tomorrow's class, we have quantitative technique. So that is for HRM. IT will have another session with someone else. So thank you much. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.
Thank you
Excuse
so
me,
much,
sir.
sir. Have a
Thank
nice
you.
day.
Thank
Have
you,
a nice
sir.
day. Bye
Thank,
bye. Bye bye.
Thank you,
bye,
sir.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Excuse
Thank
me,
you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very
Hello.
much.
Can you hear me, sir?
Thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
Sir, actually, I've not been added to the Google Classroom of this lecture for
Let me
managerial
let me
economics.
activate my.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, are you going to share this PPT afterwards?